Hello everybody. Today a new Mage battling VR game, inVokeR, is entering early access for $15 or £11, with a really nice launch discount of 40%, making it $9 or £6.60 for the first week. inVokeR at its core is what I was hoping the Unspoken would be. It's just a good, honest mage battle with no pretense. You play the role of a classic, cloaked mage who dresses up in the colours of their favourite element and goes and fights other mages in hallways for no apparent reason. The first thing you'll notice when you get inVokeR is that it looks pretty damn nice. And that's important too because there's not a whole lot of things to do or see. From the multiplayer lobby where you'll see your cutesy familiar resting on his bed, to the 3 arenas currently available, and most importantly across the visual effects of your magic in battle, there's a consistent warm and inviting fantasy vibe. In addition to the visual polish, the sound design is very nice. There's upbeat music in the lobby that sounds like something out of a modern Pokemon game. And the battle music, alongside the sounds of your various spells, works very well. As this is a multiplayer dueling game, the option is there for voice comms, presumably over the normal Steam channels. There's a volume setting in the options, but sadly just the one, meaning you can't alter the music, sound effects and voice levels individually, though you should be able to fiddle with the voice levels through Steam. To round off the trio of polish, the way it feels to be an inVokeR in VR, with your 2 hands throwing out your orbs, casting spells and ducking and weaving within your play space, all works just as you'd hope. You'll throw out fire, ice, earth and wind flavoured orbs, generally with 1 in play at a time. Regardless of whether you hit your enemy, 3 hits being your win condition, once your orb is done, you'll get a bit of mana and be able to throw your next. You draw gestures in the air to cast spells, either 1 or 2-handed, and these will either affect your in-flight orb, provide defensive options, or cause your pet familiar to go into overdrive. So here's the spells you can cast. They're all permanently scrawled on the walls, so you can always quickly reference them mid-fight if you need to. First up, we have Split. This is the most fun and useful spell for actually hurting people. You do this gesture with 2 hands, meaning you have to have an orb in flight, and it causes your orb to split into 2 and go off at around 40-degree angles. This is perfect for catching out somebody expecting to dodge, or just to increase the chaos when throwing a high velocity, wall bouncing shot. Split will cost you 3 mana to use. The next spell is Bolt. This will freeze your orb, and then shoot it quickly at where your opponent is standing. Basically, if you hear this spell, you need to sidestep within a second or so. It gives you a pretty long time to react. Bolt again costs 3 mana. Next up on the defensive side we have Slow. This uses just 1 mana and slows down projectiles so you have more time to move. It is feasibly helpful as it gives you plenty of time to sidestep and has a low cost. Next up we have Ward, which costs 6 mana. You get 1 back when you successfully block. It takes a second or so to come up, so when things are hectic, it's less likely to be helpful on reaction. It was also a bugger for accidentally casting for me. And finally there's Familiar. This costs 5 mana and feels pretty much essential for any proper assault. It pressures your opponent by causing your familiar to shoot at them accurately and often. In addition to these common spells, each of the 4 classes has its own ultimate. You build your ultimate up by waving your hands around whilst holding the gesture button, so when you throw an orb, you can dedicate both hands to drawing circles in the air and hoping you don't accidentally cast something. For the Fire Mage, the ultimate is that you can now throw 2 orbs at the same time. For the Ice Mage, the first time your orb hits a wall, it will break into 3. For the Earth Mage, you'll make a giant bowling ball, which I found a bit rubbish and slow. And for Wind, you'll launch your orbs at a very high velocity. For Fire, Ice and Wind, these ultimates were a blast. They wear off pretty quickly, and they're good not only because if you use them you're more likely to hurt your rival, but also because if you're focusing on getting your ultimate, waggling your hands around, you're more likely to lose focus and get hit. So it really ramps the gameplay up. inVokeR's gameplay is really fun and involving, especially with the gestures, but the balance of the game is something that's going to be the focal point for the early access. Personally, the way we found best to hurt the other mage was to use the split spell and the ultimates in combination with the familiar. Also, throwing the orbs with some real force not only feels fun, but it really helps to catch people out. It's very easy to dodge a slow moving orb, but when it's fast and coming off the walls at unpredictable angles, it gets a lot harder. So the split skill is really good, but the bolt is just too slow. I really think it needs a buff. You've got to think that when you're using the bolt, the only other source of pressure is going to be your familiar, meaning that you need 8 mana to use a bolt and to have your familiar going nuts. It's not that tricky to avoid defensively, and the mana cost means that you can't do it that often. The slow spell could work, especially when someone's using their ult. But considering it's fairly hard to land a hit during the majority of the game, where things aren't going as quickly, it didn't really feel like a worthwhile option. The fact that its mana cost is equal to what you get for getting an orb to the other end is really a nice touch, because it means if your opponent is beating you applying pressure, and you feel like you have to use the slow move, they're going to be starving you for resources, so it might work out in your favour, but it also pens you into a bit of a corner. The ward spell really just felt pointless. I don't get why it costs so much mana when it just blocks one hit. It requires you to have your hand and your focus pushed more towards blocking. And since your most valuable resource is your ultimate, I'd say that anything that stops you working towards that is counterproductive. I'm not sure for the shielding that the mana concept really works very well, and I don't like that it uses so much of your offensive resources. The ward spell hurts you more than it hurts your enemy. I think it would work better with a recharge mechanic, where you could bring it up at any time by holding a button, and you can drop it at any time and it will just recharge back up. However, if you let it expire fully, then there's a few second delay before you can use it again. Something that would promote last second saves rather than being sat behind your shield. Or even better, just lower the cost and make it deflect the orb. Aiming the deflection takes some skill, and you gain some footing back because your enemy now has to deal with your own projectile as well as yours coming back at them. I think you could set up some really nice traps, especially with your familiar on the side. I really didn't enjoy the Unspoken that much, because it felt to me like when you'd taken away all the visual flair, the gameplay was more tactical than anything else. I'm all for tactical gameplay, but in a one-on-one mage duel, I think I mostly just want to throw spells at people. No auto-aim, and either an active homing mechanic, or, like in the case of inVokeR, walls that you can bounce things off of. I can't say exactly what the devs want from inVokeR, but I think the gameplay works better as an arcadey, pretty fast, kinetic duel, where you try and catch your opponent out by making quick on-the-spot decisions. So my recommendations are really tailored to pushing that feel. And that's simply because when we were playing inVokeR, when it got fast and hectic, it was a lot more fun.
It's over for you. You can't handle all my angles! I've just been standing here. I don't think I've dodged one in like ages. Ah, no, they hit me right in the face. Oh no! That's actually pretty fucking hard.
When things were slower, the imbalance of the spells, and minor annoyances like the fact that your orbs kind of auto-aim to your enemy, especially when they're moving more slowly, all became much more apparent. I really don't agree with the need for auto-aim, as you have walls to rebound from. I think if there's an issue with people being able to hit someone, give them more opportunities to launch an assault, don't play the game for them. In addition to the multiplayer dueling, there are a few single player options. You can fight against AI across 3 difficulty modes. This was alright. It could help you practice, which could be a good thing if you don't get to play that often, and the game ends up being more about the skill of aiming and dodging, and using your offensive spells to trap your opponent. I beat the enemy on every difficulty once just to look for glaring problems, and it felt a bit harder each time, and I had to be pretty active to catch them out. Playing the AI, I did notice that I was getting hit a lot when it really felt like I was dodging. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but they really need to make sure that if it doesn't hit you in the face, or below the face and in between your hands, that it just doesn't hit you, even if that means tweaking the way that the player models move. There's also a boss, which is alright and has slightly different mechanics to the duels. It is pretty shallow and it's more of a war of attrition than anything else. If you really like endurance modes or are really enamoured with the art style and world feel, you might enjoy it, but I think most people are going to try it once and not come back again. So, would I recommend inVokeR? Yes, especially for the launch price. I think it's a novel and fun game. I'm sure there'll be randos to play with, but we all know that in VR at the moment, having a friend is the easiest way to ensure there'll be somebody there to play with you. I think it's a fairly social experience. The ability to talk to your enemy is pretty important, so whether you've got a friend or not, I'd recommend using the voice comms. I think that if they can rebalance the spells a bit, make sure they reinforce the things that really make you feel skillful, making quick decisions, and getting physically involved, inVokeR could really have some staying power. I guess I just have to cross my fingers and hope that the devs are on the same page as me, because there are really some good mechanics for an exciting, fast-paced mage duel. There's a quick, responsive gesture system, and a nice, clean, smooth arcade feel to it all. Hopefully they can emphasize those qualities and keep it as fast as possible, without compromising the necessity to trap your enemy with spells. I don't want it to be uncontrolled chaos, with everyone getting hit by random orbs thrown out with no aim, but the controlled chaos is definitely where the fun is. So for the release price, if you're buying with a friend, I'd say you're probably going to get your money's worth, even if nothing changes. So if you like the look of it, snatch it up at the release discount and let the devs know what you think would improve it. And that's all for this one.
Oh god, are you on one hit?
No.
Oh fuck. Oh, that was a good one. Ah, right. I actually recoiled there. That like caved so into my face. Oh, all right.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button. If you want to see more in-depth VR reviews, make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you next time.